Okay, welcome to another video. I thought what we could do today is take a look at some of the newest features that have made their way into Deepin version 20.1, which has just been released. Now we're only going to be looking at new features of this new version in today's video. For a full run through of the Deepin desktop, you can click somewhere up there for a video that I done on that just a little while ago. But today we're going to be focusing on version 20.1. So it now ships with a newer kernel version of 5.8 and uses the Debian 10.6 repositories. However, when you boot up the ISO to run through the installer, it does default to the kernel version of 5.4. So you're going to want to go into the advanced features before you start the installer and select kernel version 5.8 from there. But then after that, you're pretty much good to go, and the Deepin's installer is about as easy as it gets for a Linux installation. So starting off with Deepin's control center, we have some new options here as far as the Deepin settings. So if we jump straight into power, we have the new power plans here of balance, which we are currently on. We then have high performance and power saver, which of course will put you in a sort of power saving state. Now high performance, interestingly enough, isn't actually present on my laptop's Deepin control settings, but we'll jump into the laptop in just a moment. Now on the website they quote the high performance mode is for when ultimate performance is required. The high performance mode offers smoother user experiences. So as we cycle through the power plans from balanced to high performance to power saver, you'll notice as soon as we get onto power saver, it's going to dim the screen, and it would do that in order for you to save battery if you was running from a laptop, for example. As you can see, it has then dimmed the screen, and if we go back to balanced, we are back to normal. Okay, via the magical power of video editing, we are now at the laptop. So we're going to go again back into the control center, and we're going to go on to power, and as you can see there, we only have the two power plans of balanced and power saver. We don't have the high performance mode on this laptop. Now staying on the laptop, we're going to go down to Bluetooth. And as you can see there, I've already connected a device because we can now send files and do sort of small file transfers between Bluetooth devices. However, it's failed to send anything over to this phone at the moment. I tried it with a little test text file and it's just not working, so your mileage may vary there depending on what Bluetooth device you are using. So that's pretty much everything that I wanted to see in the new control center. So now we're going to move on to the thing that I'm most interested in checking out, is the new Deepin applications. So Deepin version 20.1 brings with it some new in-house applications to replace existing applications for things like Firefox as your web browser, Thunderbird for mail, Gparted and Cheese. So it's now got its own in-house applications for all of those functions. So we're going to start with the new browser or web browser application, which is aptly called Browser. So as you can see there, it's got the nice kind of Deepin theming there of the rounded corners on the tabbed button here. So it's a nice tabbed interface, and I think it's a Chrome based web browser. So if we jump into the settings, as you can see there, it's got Chrome with the settings flag. So we should also be able to do things like flags. There we go. And it also does appear to have extension support. So if we go into more tools here, you'll notice that we can go into extensions, and I'm currently in the developer mode at the moment, where we can load, unpack, pack extension and update. Now let's full screen it and just see what the default web sort of search engine is. So let's just type in, for example, Tyler's Tech. And as you can see there, the default search engine is Badu. So you might want to go ahead and actually change that search engine to something like Google or DuckDuckGo. So can we do that quite easily? So if we go into the settings here, can we find our home page and then just change that to something else for the search? There we go, search engine. So at the moment it's got 360, some Chinese stuff and nothing that I can really read. But if we go into manage, we can then add another search engine. So we have Google here, so we can make that the default. And now hopefully when we search for something, it will then be using Google's search engine instead of Badu's. But there we go, that's a quick look at the Deepin's new web browser, which is going to be replacing Firefox, so there won't be any Firefox application now included. But of course you can just easily install Firefox if you wasn't too happy about the browser that it does now ship with. Now what we're going to do is check out their mail application, and I've made a dummy email account just for this very purpose. So we're going to open up our application launcher, type in mail, and it's quite a nice little icon there. So again, it's going to follow the very nice theming that you do get with Deepin. Now, what did I make that dummy email account be? Is it Tyler's Tech Dummy at outlook.com? Now, when I was testing this out with different email addresses, it was having quite a lot of trouble automatically finding the server settings, and it did seem to work with Outlook, but I do think that we have to go in and configure it manually. So we'll try it out now and see if it can automatically find it. it can't. So what I'm going to do is pause the video and then go into the configure here, sort the server settings out, and then we'll come back to it once I've done that. Okay, so we're now logged into an Outlook account on Deepin's email application, despite it not being able to automatically fetch the server settings. So for the moment, it does appear for the most part you are going to have to manually edit the server settings yourselves. Hopefully they fix that in a future update and get it to automatically fetch them for you. But as far as the program window looks, it looks quite nice, to be fair. So it follows the whole Deepin design aesthetic and theming. And as you can see in the system tray, we have a little mail running indicator there, and a right click will exit that, or if you leave it, it will just stay in the background. Now, unlike the web browser that we just taken a look at, we can actually change the theming from the title bar, from the light and dark themes, or of course leave it to follow the system theme, much like most of the other suite of Deepin applications. Now if we go into the main settings, let's have a look at what we can do here. So we can add new email accounts, we can do account info and change things like your avatar and server settings, as well as adding a nice signature. And then we have some basic shortcuts here, so that's pretty handy that they have it all nicely laid out for you. And can we change these? I don't know. We can, so we can also change the keyboard shortcuts if we wasn't too happy with the defaults. That's very handy. Now in general, you can set up the general behavior of the actual email application, so we can have it as the default email client. We can set it to launch at startup. We can play alerts and sounds, and we'll auto receive every 15 minutes. And now for the main menu at the moment, it's currently minimizing to the system tray, but if we wanted to completely close the application entirely and quit it, we could then do the default behavior as exit. Now we have anti-spam for blacklisting and whitelisting emails. And now last but not least, we have data and security. Now moving to the center, we have a nice little search bar here, so let's test that out by typing in Outlook. So as we can see, that is now highlighting the keyword Outlook that is found in the subject line and also the contents of the email. And then it will show you all of that in the preview panel to the right, which is pretty handy. Now to the left, we have a little refresh button which gets new emails. So that's going to fetch for new emails. We have none received. We then have a contacts button. At the moment, of course, we have no contacts on this account, but if we did, it would populate that of all of the contacts connected to that account. And then we have a little compose or new email button, and let's have a look at how this looks as well. Okay, so let's do a fake email. So at email.com, there we go, subject hello. So we could choose the signature settings there, but at the moment we don't have any signatures enabled. And then we can change the font family. There's a fair few here to choose from. We can change the font size as well as the font color. So let's go for a greeny. Type in hello. We could also change the background color, and then of course we have the sort of formatting things for bold, italic, underline and strike through. And I've noticed when you hover over it, it will also tell you the keyboard shortcut, which is quite handy and will get you used to using the keyboard shortcuts a lot more once you know what they are. So for example, if we wanted to do an italic, we'd select all and then press Control I, and then that will put any highlighted text into italics. We then have some aligning buttons for center, left, right, and all of that good stuff. And then we have justify fully with the keyboard shortcut of Control Shift and J. There we go. We then have increase indent or decrease indent. We can even insert a little table in our email here, and then we can do bullets and numbering like so. So we also appear to have some nice little undo buttons. So let's undo that if we make any mistakes, and let's keep going until we've got a completely clear email. There we go. So for sort of just formatting options in a default email client, that's actually very good, to be fair. I'm quite impressed with everything that you can do to get a nicely formatted email. Now on the bottom row we have add an attachment, insert an image, hide editor, more, which will let you send separately, important or request receipt. And then of course we could save that draft or send it, but we won't be doing either of those things. Okay, so here we are with Deepin's very own disk manager, which will of course be replacing gparted. So again, it's got the nice rounded corners and follows the whole design aesthetic that Deepin goes for. However, uncharacteristically of Deepin, it doesn't look very nice in your application launcher. So if we type in disk, you'll notice it's got a nice little icon, but the actual title of the application itself is all in one word and there is no capital letters. I'm sure that's going to be addressed at some point. Okay, so back to the window itself. I wonder if we can change the themings. We can indeed. So much like all of the other Deepin suite of applications, we can change the theme from light, dark and system from the actual application window itself. The only application that we've looked at today so far from the new suite of applications that doesn't have that option enabled is their Chrome-based web browser. Now let's see what we can actually do with this new program. So we can do a right click, we can get disk info and check health management. Let's check the health of this Brent. Okay, so our health status at the moment is good. We've got no reading for the temperature though. I'm quite surprised that the health status of this drive is actually good though. It has taken a bit of a hammering on the channel. Now we can press this little button here to collapse or expand it so we can see the partitions on that current drive. So here's all of the different partitions that the Deepin installer creates for you. Now I've got a spare USB drive here that we can play about with and see how everything works. So at the moment all of these options are greyed out apart from unmount. So let's unmount it. So that's now going to unmount dev SDA, which is currently mounted on a Neon. Okay, so that's now unmounted it. So there's a few more options that we can do now. So we can do format to, we can mount it again, or we can resize it. So let's give it a go at formatting it. So let's just call this one testing out. So in file systems at the moment it only appears to give us 3 options for this drive. So we can do ext2, 3 or 4. So let's test it out with ext3. So what we're going to do now is press format. It's going to give you a little spinning wheel while it's doing it, and it's done. So it's been mounted again at Media Tile and Neon. So this obviously had a Neon installation on it at some point, or an ISO, and now we can see it in our file manager mounted there ready to be used. Perfect. Quite a simple little program there. I'm not sure whether I would still personally just install gparted as well for a bit more advanced disk management, but for an included default in-house application, that's pretty good to be fair. Okay, last but not least, we're going to be testing out their new camera application which replaces Cheese. Now the camera that I'm currently using is connected to the capture computer, so it's going to pick up the webcam on the laptop, which is a horrible 720p, but let's give it a go. So we're going to go into our application launcher, we're going to type in camera, and there it is there with a nice little camera icon, and we're going to open that up, and bang. So at the moment you can see a bit of wall and the arm for the microphone, and perhaps there's a hand. Okay, so what can we do? So we can go into video mode as well, so we could press that to start recording and go back. And if we can go into the settings, we can again change the light and dark theme, so that makes every application apart from their web browser work with the default theming there. And what can we do in the settings? So in basic we can change the save location, so it of course does default to videos. We can do a shoot for burst mode, none for PCS or 10 PCS. We can set a self timer delay of none, 3 or 6 seconds. Now in output we can change the formatting for JPG. In fact for JPEG I don't think we can actually change the formatting at the moment. Okay, so at the moment the format seems to be tied to JPEG or WebM, and of course there is that 720p goodness that we have got for the laptop's camera there. So let's give it a go at recording and taking a photo and see how that all comes out. So what we're going to do is start off with a little photo. So I'm just going to take a photo of my hand, and now we're going to do a little video and see how that records it as well. So we're just going to move the hand, hello hand, 5, 6 seconds, and now we're going to test that out and see how that all looks. So it will give you a little history there, so we can go back and can we play it from within this window itself? It appears to open it up in a different window, but there we go. So look at that nice blurry artifacty goodness from that 720p camera. Very nice. And now let's test out the image. So that's going to open it up in this nice little image viewer, and there we go. So again, I don't know how many people actually use the default sort of webcam applications that do come on their Linux distributions, but I don't really know what more you'd expect from an application like this. It does pretty much most of the basics that you're really going to want out of this. For anything more involved, you're going to want to sort of install a different capture utility. But that's been pretty much my look at all of the new applications that come with Deepin version 20.1. So as well as everything that we've looked at today, there are of course some other new features that I haven't included that will be available to read in this changelog here, and it will tell you about things like performance improvements that are going to be happening behind the scenes. So I'm going to link this in the description below, where you can see the whole changelog down at the bottom here. So there's quite a lot that has gone on with fixes and optimizations with the window manager, etc. That's been my quick look at the new features of Deepin version 20.1. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and join the Discord. There's a link in the description below. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.